Welcome everyone, I'm Robert Green, CPA and CEO of GreenTraderTax and co-managing member of Green NFH LLC, our CPA firm. I'm joined by Darren Neuschwander, co-managing member of Green NFH LLC. Hopefully Jason Derbyshire of TradeLog Software will join us. He did just tell us there was some major storms where he is and they lost internet, so he will try to dial in as well. Welcome to this week's webinar on July 17th on cost basis reporting and update, how to file Form 8949 with 1099B differences. Now, I did send out this blog on July 11th. You can see it in front of you on the screen. And the problem is we've had a bottleneck. We thought these new cost basis reporting rules were problematic. I even thought the IRS should just recall them and they were that much of a problem. Brokers are struggling with 1099Bs. It's not fair to say they're botching them. In some cases, they're following the rules. They have a different set of rules. We call it apples. Taxpayers have to do something else. We call it oranges. It's different. So you have new rules, which are somewhat controversial. We question some of the design of the rules. Then you have brokers implementing them in different ways. It's not standardized. They didn't see the new Form 8949 until after they changed their systems. That was too late. This is an example of tax change being destructive when you just keep making changes. And so everyone has done their best. It's cost a lot of money. And bottom line, you securities traders, this is not a problem for futures traders or Forex traders. This is for securities traders. You have these 1099Bs that have a lot more information. And when you try to figure out what's on those 1099Bs, when you try to compare it to TradeLog or your confirmations or your own records, it doesn't match. The proceeds don't match. The cost basis doesn't match. Why? Brokers sliced and diced the original trading information, which they did have in their system, to generate 1099Bs to satisfy the IRS on their rules for brokers. So they sliced and diced the information, and the result is hodgepodge for your purposes. It doesn't match up on a line-by-line basis. There's all sorts of problems, and we've talked about that in the past. Wash sales are one of the biggest problems. The brokers reported potential wash sales, not actual wash sales. So we see 1099Bs that say $1 million of wash sales when there are no wash sales. So we've had a bottleneck. We've tried to get some relief from the IRS, but we're just a small fish in a big pond. Darren's been involved with some accounting industry groups to get the message through, and they've worked hard at it. But the only relief I see so far is that options, which are supposed to be covered securities in 2013, not a problem this year. In 2013, the IRS gave another 1-year extension on that. So here we are today, mid-July. These 2011 tax returns are due October 15th on extension. We're not going to file all these returns on October 10th. We can't wait any longer. We've waited for brokers to correct 1099s. So if you got your corrected 1099 and you're not expecting another major correction, we have to go to war with the army we have. And that means use the 1099B that you have now. Use TradeLog, which we have thought all along does the accounting correctly, and have our tax preparers finish your return, add the proper footnotes, some of which mirror the trade log disclaimer about what the program does. Ask you to sign a rep letter. Here's an example right in front of you now. We can go through this later, explaining how the software works and what the issues are. I'm going to come back to that in a second. And file. File the returns. Now, we've asked the IRS not to send out tax notices for matching the returns. And TradeLog does do an adjustment on the 8949 to try to match the totals of the 1099B, so that if the IRS does match it on a total basis, it will match. So we're doing everything we can to limit problems, but we have to go to war with the army we have. It's unreasonable to expect brokers to correct 1099Bs sufficiently so that there would be no more errors on any of them. We just don't see it happening. Now, I believe there are brokers like TradeStation who have promised updates to the 1099, so we'll wait for that. But if you've already gotten your corrected 1099s from Fidelity or E-Trade as examples, and Darren and Johnny can correct me on the latest news from various brokers, then it's time to go. Now, we're not going to file every return by next week, but Darren and I put up a on-hold sign. We thought that any accountants that just filed into this mess without figuring out the issues and thinking it out carefully and getting corrections where possible was really doing it at their own risk. And we decided that that was not appropriate. But now we have turned on the switch to file. But again, we're not going to do them all overnight because we had a bottleneck. And we're not going to wait to the end of October 10th to do it either. So hopefully you will be patient and understanding of us as well. We're doing all these things to protect you and to protect ourselves because no one wants to file a botched tax return. Now, a lot of accountants we have found out have made big errors. In our pursuit of the solutions here, we've talked to other solution providers other than TradeLog to see if they could help us reconcile line-by-line reporting. And we've heard from one company in particular, that a lot of accountants just import 1099Bs into their tax software. They use OCR. They import the 1099B. And why? Because they want the 8949 to match the 1099B. Well, if you input the incorrect information, yes, you will verify back to the incorrect information. But that does you a great disservice. I've heard a lot of people who've signed up on consults with me who told me, oh, I had a huge wash sale last year and I filed already. And I said, did you run TradeLog? Oh, no. Who is your broker? X, a known broker that has problems with wash sales. I said, well, you probably way over-reported your wash sales and you may have way overpaid your taxes. It may not matter as much if there was a capital loss limitation, but why have errors perpetuated? So a lot of accountants, in their quest to comply with the new IRS cost basis reporting rules, they have departed from accounting for confirmations, really trade transactions, they've changed to using the 1099B, which has all the problems. And when you confront them and say, you are doing your clients a disservice, you are preparing incorrect taxable income, you are importing errors that are known errors into your system for purposes of taxpayers. Brokers use potential wash sales, identical positions, but taxpayers need to use actual wash sales and substantially identical positions across all accounts. Apples and oranges. If you're an accountant and you're swallowing those bad apples, you're going to have a real problem on your hands. Now, what accountants tell you is, hey, when the IRS comes to me or the client tries to sue me for malpractice, I'm just going to say I relied on the 1099-B. That's a tax information statement. I have an out. Well, not if you know the 1099-B is wrong. I'm going to want to hear from my partner, Darren Neuschwander. What do you think about that, Darren?
And what was it? Your exact statement was what?
Well, do you think accountants are being reckless? Because you've told me about this as well. I know you've met with industry groups and you've taken the temperature of other accountants. Do you think accountants have an out to tell the IRS or their client who brings an action that, hey, I didn't do malpractice, I just relied on the 1099-B and I'm permitted to do that, even though there are known errors? Do you think that they can get away with saying that they didn't know about all the errors?
Well, a tax preparer has the same responsibility to some level as the individual that's actually preparing the returns themselves. I mean, we have a code of ethics that we have to follow, and if we're not preparing the returns properly, it could be subject to penalties as the paid preparer. And just taking the 1099 as a whole without considering all of the known issues, because it's been in the media. Our firm has been very active in it. You can see it in the Wall Street Journal. There's articles and bearings on it. It's not something that not everyone is just, saying that I was not aware of this, I find very difficult. So the fact that someone that has a 1099 from various brokerage firms that have known to generate some of these issues and just basically ignore it, yes, I do have issues with that. I really do. I think that you need the tax preparer, just as the individual, needs to do their due diligence and making sure that the information is being reported as reasonably as possible. And utilizing a program such as TradeLog is where we feel you really need to try to generate those reasonably correct numbers, because of the fact that if you have multiple accounts, just trying to reconcile it and relying solely on the 1099s that the brokers are give you, you're not going to be able to do that. We've just seen examples after examples after examples where just if someone solely just relied on the 1099s, the information that would be reported on the tax returns, if you relied solely on that, more likely than not would be incomplete and or inaccurate.
Well, let's jump to question 7 here, Darren. Do traders have to keep pressing their brokers to correct 1099-Bs? And our answer, the blog has a lot of answers, but we're going to discuss it on the webinar and give you more color commentary and the nuance. And we say no. They should try to do their best, and that shows the IRS that they knew that there were problems and they tried to get answers. But, how can a small trader, no matter how big you are as a trader, get a big brokerage house to change their systems? Now, one of our clients spent 40 hours of his time finding every individual difference, and he presented all the evidence to the online broker. He forced his broker to fix every error on the 1099-B, and that closed the gap, so there was no differences. But few clients have that kind of time. And my problem is that if you asked us to do it and paid for us to do it, I don't think in most cases that we'll find every difference. And even if we do, I don't think the brokers are going to make the changes. So that's investing a lot of time and effort into what could amount to a wild goose chase. So now's the time to just do the best you can and to move forward. Let's go back to some of these other questions. We'll start with question 1. Is it safe to file a 2011 individual income tax return in Form 8949 containing differences between your own trading profit and loss and amounts reported on 1099-Bs? So before we get into that, what we want to, again, explain to you, and this is what we explained to you in the rep letter and what Trade Law explains in their disclaimer, okay? We want our clients to sign this rep letter. We're saying it's safe to file, but because we have to file and we believe it's safe to file, and we're going to war with the army we have, but there are some kinks in the armor, and we want our clients to acknowledge that. This is customary. We don't want them to say to us, I didn't know anything about any of this later on. So they're going to represent to us that they read our content, that they understand that there are certain compromises that we believe is appropriate on a cost-benefit analysis in light of these problematic circumstances. We're using the trade log software. That's really the only solution that we think really works. We say a good solution for active traders. But we want you to understand how trade log works. We already explained how the cost basis reporting rules work. There are rules for brokers. Those are apples. There are rules for taxpayers. Those are oranges. They're different. You can't use a 1099-B because there are errors and it's oranges. We need to use apples. We need to use oranges, the trade log software, which downloads everything and does it right. Trade log downloads it, does the line-by-line reporting, does the wash sales in the right manner, and it's correct. But the 8949 has to reconcile with the 1099-B. That's the whole idea of the new rules with the IRS. They want the brokers to report cost basis and beefed up information, and then they want to reconcile it to tax returns to make sure that taxpayers are not fibbing on their returns. Remember, in the past, brokers didn't know anything about cost basis or gain or loss. They only knew about proceeds. They saw traders 1099s for $10 million of proceeds. They didn't know anything about gain or loss. The numbers were just too big and scary for the IRS. So that's why they're changing the system. So the whole spirit of what they're trying to do is to reconcile. Well, that's all well and good, but, you know, trade log has limited reconciliation. The trade log program offers a feature to reconcile the 1099-B totals for purchases and proceeds. It does not provide a means to reconcile 1099-Bs on a line-by-line or trade-by-trade basis, which happens to be called for in the 8949 instructions. That's what the IRS wanted. So we're telling the IRS it's just not possible, and anyway, that would show huge differences, and they would be unexplainable. So the program is doing you have to turn this on in the program. It's doing a total reconciliation. So if the trade log says that proceeds are $50 million, and the 1099-B says that proceeds are $50,500,000, it's going to have a difference number there to reconcile, so that when the IRS computers have a go at this later on, which we're hoping they turn off, but if they have a go at it later on, they'll match up. So this adjustment helps you match up. And it also points out to the IRS, hey, there's an open issue here. And we explain it in the footnote. We're not trying to pull a fast one on anyone. We're trying to show what the program does. First and foremost, it does the accounting right. Hey, that's what counts the most. You file the right wash sales, the right gain or loss. All these other accountants and programs are filing it wrong. They're filing 1099-B information. You're doing it right. But then they ask you to reconcile back to all those errors. It's a wild goose chase. So you're just saying, hey, here's a reconciliation on a gross level. If it says the adjustment's $100,000, we're not trying to mask any differences. There could be $10 million of changes from wash sales and millions of dollars of changes from other issues because the broker sliced and diced and turned it into a mess. So we lay this out for you in the rep letter, and we talk about, go ahead. Now, Johnny, why don't you jump in on that?
Okay. I was going to say, I don't want to interrupt you, but I thought now might be a good time. I might could show just a real quick example. I don't want to get too detailed with the 8949, but I can show what you were talking about with, where the adjustment, one of the adjustments is, and just show what you were referring to there if you want to switch screens.
Good. Yeah, I was thinking to do that, Johnny. I'm glad you jumped in. I just switched screens to you.
Okay.
Because, Johnny, after all, you're the one who really pointed out to me, Bob, let's not oversell this reconciliation. It's the IRS wants a reconciliation, but we're just showing a total difference that could represent a lot of different reconciliation issues. So, Johnny, you need to accept the screen. You need to accept the screen.
Okay. I don't see that. My computer.
I just changed you to present, and now you need to accept it.
My computer locked up.
All right, let me take it back. All right, let me take it back. I'm showing my screen. Tell me when it's unlocked. Let me just, I'm not going to stop the recording. All right, let me change it back to you again. Sorry, everyone. So you need to accept it. Accept the screen now.
Don't yet. My computer's locked up.
All right, so you won't be able to do it, Johnny. You got a problem on your end. But, the 8949, everyone, and what I can do is I can just bring up a sample 8949 on the IRS website just to show you what we're talking about. And Jason, I apologize, Jason Derbyshire was going to also show today, but on this 8949 everyone sees in front of you, at the bottom here, we have a big difference number. And it basically, at the bottom of this 8949, one second, I'm having an issue myself.
All right, Bob, let's see if this, can you see my screen now?
One second. Sorry, everyone, no, we're going right now. So accept it now, Johnny. All right, we got it now. Good. Thank you, Johnny. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, just here is an example. If you look and notice right here, here's an adjustment to reconcile differences of 1099B. This is within the 8949. You'll see in this particular example, it's a $164,000 adjustment. Now, this is, frankly, a typical adjustment that we're seeing. Some of them are a lot bigger than this. Some of them are smaller, but this is not atypical. This is the type of adjustment you can see on this account. It's someone who had traded 6.4 million of round-trip trades. So that's the type number we're seeing on that type of an account. And I just wanted to give you an idea. That's the type of thing that's going to be on your 8949. I'm going to scroll to the top just to show you what this is. And this is actually the 8949 that's being produced by TradeLog when you run the reports after you've reconciled TradeLog. So this is just one of those pages, and it'll be, and that's why Bob is saying what we want to do, we want to show that difference to the IRS because we are reconciling to that, and we're showing that there is an adjustment, but we're not trying to hide anything. We want to explain that with a footnote and explain everything to the IRS that this is the adjustment that we see. We think we have the most accurate information available, and that's why we're filing it this way. But at the same time, here's the adjustment, and here's the explanation.
Now, Johnny, go scroll to the bottom again, okay?
Okay.
I want to show everyone someone. Now, at the bottom, you see the 6.466 on proceeds, and then you see cost basis, and then you see net gain or loss. And that net gain or loss goes over to Schedule D. But the point is that if the IRS were to run a matching program for line 2, that might then reconcile with the 1099-B. Without that adjustment, it would not reconcile. So first of all, TradeLog puts in the adjustment because they want to show it. And in one of our questions for today's webinar, we debated inside the firm, do we want to show this difference or not? It's a big number. Some of them are $10 million. And our answer was, hey, Trade log shows it. We don't want to take it off. It is a big issue. Shows potentially a big problem difference. And that's not our problem. It's the IRS's problem. It has to do with their rules. That's on the one hand. On the second hand, this line 2 would then reconcile with their computers. So on the one hand, we kind of matched with their computers. And on the other hand, if someone takes a look, we're not hiding anything. And we explain it in the footnotes. Darren, what do you say about all that?
Well, it's like Bob mentioned, we did discuss this as a firm for quite some time, and we felt that it was appropriate to have the adjustment in the 8949 to truly show that our numbers in total comparing to what's on the 1099s, there is a difference, and to actually get our numbers to somewhat reconcile to what's on the 1099-Bs, this adjustment, reconciliation adjustment, was needed. Now, as we have mentioned throughout this webinar, that adjustment is in total. It's not a line-by-line adjustment, but it is what we feel that is the most appropriate reconciliation / adjustment that we're able to do until we're actually able to go through, hopefully in future years, more on a true line-by-line basis to try to reconcile the differences. And even that may not be completely possible just due to technology until we potentially get the brokers to actually provide the information that they have on the 1099s in a workable format to where a software maybe such as TradeLog can actually take that and truly do some line-by-line comparisons. But even then, we think there may be some future limitations just because of differences in ticker symbols, especially if you're trading options. So there's some things to work toward in the future, but what we're trying to address now is how can we file your 2011 tax return? And in order to file it and have some type of reconciliation, we feel that it's appropriate to actually include this adjustment that was demonstrated on the 8949. And if it is questioned by the IRS, we have the support to basically show this is why we think there should be this adjustment, because we feel comfortable that the information inside of TradeLog is more appropriate than what's on the 1099.
Yeah, so this leads nicely, Darren, into question 2. What happens if the IRS audits a trader over Form 8949? And by the way, we just went over the rationale for that last answer, and that's on the blog. So watch the webinar and go back and look at the rationale on the blog. So what do we do if the IRS audits you? Well, we just said we're probably pleased their computers because we matched up the totals. Now, we didn't do a plug number. We really didn't do anything. TradeLog generated this adjustment, and we explain in the footnote what that is. It's not a so-called accounting adjustment. It's not a plug number. It represents a difference. So we highlight a difference for the IRS, but on that line, rather than letting their computers hit the red flag button, that something's wrong. So let's say you do get audited by the IRS, and no one wants that. We're doing everything to avoid an IRS audit. That's the worst thing that can happen. We don't like audits. Well, here's the answer. If you get examined by the IRS, plan to give the agent your trade log reports and saying, here's trade log, this is correct. My gain or loss, my tax return is correct. Read on the Green Trader site all these problems with the broker 1099s. Here are my brokerage statements. You can match trade log to the statements, but when you try to match them to the 1099-Bs, you'll see how they sliced and diced them and made errors. So go ahead, agent. Don't sit in my home or office or my accountant's office. You know, you take this information, go spend weeks of America taxpayers' money going on a wild goose chase for all the errors. And then when you find them, go ahead to the broker and say, broker, make the corrections, because this is a brokerage firm problem. This is a problem in the IRS's design, the apples and the oranges. Again, some of the brokers, if they follow the rules for apples, you can't say it's an error. They're not supposed to do oranges. They're not supposed to do wash sales between stocks and options, but you are supposed to do it, and that's what TradeLog does. So this will be a huge time waster for the IRS, and in the end, your tax return will be accepted the way it is. And maybe they'll rethink their rules a little bit. You don't want to be a guinea pig on that. But if you get examined over this, we're going to send them a letter and say, trade log's right, the 1099-B is wrong. You should reconsider the exam and close it before it even starts. So that we did. Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, I was going to say one caveat with the trade log is that in order to fully say that, we've got to have a 1099 that we can fully reconcile to do the final check. We think that trade log will get the majority of it and be much more accurate than the 1099. But there is an issue with the 1099. If we can't fully reconcile it, then we can't fully complete the process of the reconciliation.
Right.
What we do is kind of a two-step process. We reconcile it to the end of the year, and I wanted to make sure we were clear on that we reconcile it to the end of the year, and we also, in order to finish the process and make sure all the necessary adjustments are made, we reconcile to the 1099. And that's, if you want to switch screens back, I could show kind of some of the differences and the problems we're running into with regard to that, and why we need the letters you were talking about and that kind of stuff, and understanding of where we're at.
All right, so accept the screen. Johnny, while you do that, I'm glad you brought this up. This speaks to what we've discussed internally. It's better if your resolution was a little fuller, but that's okay, Johnny. It's a little hard to see it. But what I want everyone to understand is we accountants always like to crossfoot. We like to reconcile. We do it one way, and then we like to do it another way and make sure it matches because we want to reconcile. That's where the term comes from. And in past years, looked at a 1099 and it said proceeds were $50 million. That we knew was correct for stocks only, not options, because only stocks were covered. But this year, we can't even count on that because we know they're sliced and diced. A lot of brokers have adjusted wash sales to proceeds. That makes no sense. We used to do a basic reconciliation that we could count on, and now we can't. One hand is tied behind the back. So he just does not want us to oversell reconciliation. Go ahead, John.
Right. Yeah, let me explain kind of, and I've got a couple of examples here just to kind of give you some typical results that we're seeing now. And this first example, you'll see, I know it's probably small, and I apologize for that, but I think the others are a little bit bigger. But this one shows, this is someone's 1099 that I've blacked out the person's information, and shows that the gross proceeds, you may not be able to read it, but it's $155 million. I'll just round it off. And then if you'll notice that when we go to the, if I can get my screen to switch.
Just on the bottom there.
It's not showing up. I don't know why my computer's frozen.
Well, just talk it through, Johnny, because I don't want to have a delay here.
Yeah. Well, anyway, unfortunately, I can't imagine why this isn't working. But anyway, what I was going to show in this particular case is this is one that was corrected. And we were able to get the broker to correct it. And in this case, it was actually we were able to reconcile completely because we finished the process. We finished the 1099, and the reconciliation will show us a 1 penny difference. And that's typically what we, like Bob had said, that's what we could do in the past almost all the time. This is now a rare occurrence rather than the norm. And the examples I was hoping to show, which...
Click your PowerPoint. Click your PowerPoint icon, Johnny. And then see the other choice there.
Yeah. Let me start slideshow again. Cancel that. Okay, yeah, it's back now. Okay, so you'll see in this case we have the 1 penny difference, which is what we expect, and that's great. And that's typically what we could do in the past all the time. Now it's much more rare, and this is a case where we actually did get the 1099 corrected. Here's another example of a different client, different 1099, different broker, but they're all typical. This one has $342 million in gross proceeds, and you'll see when we do the reconciliation in trade log, there's the $342 that we get from the 1099-B. However, trade log, we believe correctly, has $372 million. So we're off by $30 million is what the difference just in the gross proceeds.
And you got options? Does it include options on the
Yeah,
1099-B?
Yeah, options are backed out. Trade law.
Oh, so you already backed them out. Okay, right. So it's not that.
Out,
right.
And that's taken care of. So it should match to 0 if everything was as we expect in the years past. All right, so in this particular case, they issued a corrected 1099. You can see this is the same client on 5/17. They got multiple ones. This is actually the third one they received. I'm just showing you the last two, which changed their gross proceeds to $355 million. And as you can see, that reduced our problem from $30 million to $16 million.
Still a big problem.
That's better, and the point that makes is that the 1099 was acknowledged to be wrong by the broker. You know, obviously they corrected it by $15 million, but they're still off another 16, and we don't know if we're getting another 1099 later because that's the third one we've gotten. Just to give you an example, this is the client's email that I blacked out all the information, other than the fact, the point being made that they're still getting 1099. That this particular broker promised them that they're getting revised 1099s, and yet they refuse to give any dates, even though they're admitting that all their accounts have large mismatches. So it is, as I said, this is not atypical. This is what is out there, and that's the problem that we're running into, and why we feel that while the 1099 is wrong, trade law gives you the best numbers, we still have a little bit of a caveat in that we can't finish the 1099 reconciliation if that is incorrect data that we're trying to make.
You know, it's funny, Johnny, if we tell these other accountants that they can't rely on a 1099-B to file a return, I mean, we're saying we can't even rely on it for a simple reconciliation of even a total number. That's how unreliable it is.
Right. But we do feel like, based on historical evidence, that trade law has given us the results that we have confidence in over the past, and we do feel like that the trade log results, even though we can't tick off every little line item, we do feel like it's much more accurate than the 1099 based on historical evidence.
All right, Johnny, are you ready for me to go back to my screen? Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Now, everyone, I want you to understand that we never sit around as a company and say, well, this is the limitation. I mean, we got a rep letter here with this limitation. We don't like this. We don't like any of it. So we're pushing the IRS to fix this, but we're not sitting idle. We're working with TradeLock to see if we can come up with a capability for line-by-line reconciliations. We know that's what the IRS is after. And we're talking to other companies, too, to see if they can help us if necessary. We are actively working to fix this issue so that you can just go out there, get the program, hit the button, and do it easily. This should not be a federal case. It's counterproductive. The IRS did something to so-called make it easier and more reliable, and it's become more confusing and more unreliable. So it's unintended consequences. By the way, that's a very good book I'm reading now, Unintended Consequences. All right, so back on the rep letter, we'll come back to that later on. Let's go back to the questions where we were. If you get audited, we're just going to say, hey, you guys should be auditing yourself. Reconsider it, and we'll try to put it out. We'll just give them the statements to check. Now, so question 3. How should I deal with these unreconciled differences throughout the tax filing? So, again, this is, my partner Darren Neuschwander, who heads up tax preparation, is kind of, the clearinghouse for this, but we believe you should highlight the differences from Form 89, 49, 1099-B, which we do on the form. We highlight that difference. We say, here's a difference. It's a representative difference. It's a total difference. And we're kind of telling them there's a lot of line-by-line differences, and we explain it in the footnotes and perhaps supporting worksheets. There's no reason to try to bury it. This is the IRS's problem. So you should clearly say what steps you took, how you use TradeLog, what TradeLog does, what you did in terms of reconciliation, what you didn't do, so that the IRS is on the same page. So what we say in this rep letter and what the TradeLog disclaimer is going to be, and I just updated what I thought maybe our version of that may be. One second. Hold on. I was just working on this today. We're going to show what TradeLog does. We're going to lay all this out to the IRS so that they see what's going on very clear and succinctly. You know, you've always relied on our footnotes before. So no one can come to us later on and say, hey, GreenTraderTax tried to paper over this problem. The client tried to paper over the problem. We're explaining that we went to war with the army we have, and it's a great TradeLog program, and it's a messed up IRS set of rules and a problem set of 1099s. Make it clear. Why should we obstruct justice, which we would never do? People always get into trouble for that by trying to hide and seek, hide and prevent seeking. That no one's in the business of that. So be clear about it. Don't just paper it over. Now, your accountant, if they used an incorrect 1099-B, they're not going to do any of that. They don't want to acknowledge that they even know about the gravity of this problem with you. They just want to get your return out the door, say they relied on the 1099-B, and if you got a big problem, that's your problem, not theirs. I think that that's really doing you a disservice, and I think it's inappropriate. So now, question 4. Now, by the way, if your unreconciled difference is only $1,000 and you mostly do reconcile, we might not make a federal case out of it in the footnotes. It's more for when there's a big issue. Do you agree with that, Darren? Isn't that what we discussed?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so question 4. How do I e-file a tax return with the Form 8949? And maybe you want to give this answer, Darren.
Well, if we're actually preparing the tax return for you, we don't actually import the information from TradeLog into our tax preparation software. Instead, we actually e-file the tax returns, and then we send in the 8949 that's generated from when TradeLog. We actually send that in to the IRS. We mail it in with an 8453, and 8453 is just another additional form to where if there's a particular attachment that you can't put with your tax return, that you could still e-file your return but actually send in that attachment separately, and that's the reason for the 8453. And that's really the only way that we actually have the capabilities to get it in. I know there's some applications out there, such as some other Intuit products that you can purchase and prepare the tax returns yourselves, and even they have had some limitations this year, having the information directly imported into their software. So if you do have an 8949 this year with multiple trades, I think this year, more than any year in the past, actually sending in the documentation, the 8453 supporting docs, to the IRS so that you can still e-file your tax return is the most appropriate way to handle the situation this year. And hopefully within the next 2 years, the IRS is actually going to be switching over to a different e-filing system, which will actually allow you to attach the TradeLog reports with 8949 reports as a PDF file directly within your e-file tax return. But that's 2 years to come. We're not there yet. So that's how we're having to handle the matter for the 2011 tax returns. Question,
Darren. If we file the 8949 and the TradeLog attachments by mail with the 8453, that's not getting into the IRS computer domain as easily. So when the IRS computers seek to match, they're going to match to the 8949 maybe in totals, and we will match, and they won't start matching all the detail. Is that like a byproduct benefit of that filing?
Quite possibly. I'm not going to say directly that will negate your chances of getting selected for an audit, but it does substantially reduce it.
Good. Well, that's a good thing. All right, so let's go to question 5 and the answer. Does the IRS require taxpayers and tax preparers to investigate unreconciled differences between 8949 and 1099Bs? If yes, do they need to explain those differences on the tax return? The IRS cost basis rules call for taxpayers and tax preparers. This is what our Adam Manning told me when he read through the instructions. It calls on them to, quote unquote, verify, and the cost basis reporting, actually the cost basis reporting regulations say this, to verify Form 8949 to their 1099Bs. Now, there are some solutions out there. I saw a question on the board. Are there any other solutions out there? There is a solution out there that we're talking to the company about. And they talk about verifying the tax, the 8949 to the 1099B. Only one problem. They're importing the 1099B. So, of course, you're going to verify. They also go further. They verify that the cost makes sense, that you didn't override it and try to fool the tax preparer that it was, based on historical cost changes. So, this concept of verify, this concept of reconciliation, these terms are being bandied about, but you can't reconcile or verify back to bad apples. It just doesn't do any accounting any good. So we want you to make an attempt, and Darren, maybe why don't you take over? What do you want our clients to do about their 1099Bs? Do you want them to take out some of their statements, look them over, try to find some of the changes, and go back to their brokers and ask for changes? We're running out of time for that now. But, how much is that their responsibility or not? Darren, you first.
Well, if you're utilizing the trade log software, which we do from using it throughout the years, the procedures for importing the data into trade log really has not changed. So if you have been using trade log in the past and you're continuing to use it in 2011, I would expect that the information inside of trade log is fairly reasonable, if not the absolute correct gain or loss number in total. And as Johnny was pointing out, what we like to do is try to look in total, how does the information inside of trade log compare to what's on the 1099, and that's where we're seeing these rather large discrepancies, and where at that time we'll go back to the client and look, it's out of adjustment, it appears it's not reconciling in total to the 1099. Maybe you want to go back to your brokerage firm and just let them know the situation, see if they can maybe find some of the problems. And when clients do that, I mean, this is this is an actual example. We had that. I explained it to the client. The client called the particular brokerage firm, and the brokerage firm said, yeah, we knew about that. We'll add you to the list to get you an amended or corrected 1099. It's more or less squeaky wheel gets the oil, kind of say. If you alarm them or make them aware of the issue, then they're more likely to make the change. If not, chances are you won't get any changes to that. But some of the brokerage firms, not singling any of them out, but some of them are dramatically unreconcilable compared to what the data that we're getting inside of trade log is. So to try to come up with that total reconciliation number, if the 1099 is dramatically off and you're trying to come to that reconciliation number just could be very, very large, and that's our overall concern. We need to try to go back to the broker and see if we can find some of the issues. And there's a great summary that actually is on, and Bob has it up on the screen now, that trade log does, and it actually lists per broker what some of the overall issues are. And when we start seeing these particular brokerage firms and we see, okay, we're out, why are we out, and you start reconciling and testing it, and sure enough, one or two, and you compare that to what trade log has compared to what's on the 1099, and it doesn't take very long for it to start adding up and reconciling to some of these overall differences. But to do that, on a true line-by-line basis across the board for someone that's an active trader, you know, yeah, it would take you 40-plus hours to actually do that. And again, working with TradeLog throughout the years, as we have with so many of our clients, we feel comfortable using their program that the data that we're getting from that is fairly reasonable. And the other thing that we do, especially for it's much not as much time consuming if you're a trader using mark-to-market, we can test the trade log reports, and that we can actually do a performance method or maybe an inventory method where we actually look at your beginning account value, the ending account value, and maybe what additional capital did you add to the account during the year, what did you take out. And once you consider all those variables, the end result should be your overall change in the account for the year. Now, how does that compare to what TradeLog's giving you? Well, if those numbers are fairly reasonable to each other, I really don't care what the 1099 says. The 1099 in that respect is straight out wrong. Because if we can do that, and we have TradeLog, which has got all of the trades, that to me is proof enough that there's a major issue with the 1099 that's coming from the broker. Now, if you're a cash basis trader or an investor, that's not quite as simple. Can those proofs be done? Absolutely, they can be done, but we have to take into account deferred wash sales and unrecognized or unrealized loss or gain that you may have in your open positions. Yes, it can be done. And we have tested those with some of our clients to try to prove that the information coming from TradeLog is fairly reasonable, and we have felt comfortable with the numbers. But it's additional steps that we're having to do just because of the whole issue with the reporting of the 1099s this year. It's requiring additional work. And it's unfortunate that the end result is being pushed down to the taxpayer. But in order to prepare an accurate tax return as much as possible, it's just what's going to be required this year, Bob.
That's great, Darren. So I'm glad you pointed out this question 6 too, Darren, about where they can find more information about the differences. If you click that link, this TradeLog page comes up with a lot of the known differences. And we'll also go back to our blog because we've written about potential wash sales and all sorts of other known differences. So, Darren, maybe quickly just start on 7 and 8. I'm just going to jump in the men's room. You just cover 7 and 8 for a second, okay?
Sure. Do traders have to keep pressing their brokers to correct 1099s? I mean, as we put in the blog, no, you don't have to keep pressing, but at the same time, as Johnny was pointing out, trying to reconcile as much as possible in total to what we have available to us in TradeLog. If we find that we're dramatically off, the only way that that total reconciliation number is going to be any smaller than what it is you do need to go back to your broker and see if they can find some of the issues of why you're off. Some of it just can't be explained just because of the overall issue with multiple accounts and deferred wash sales in between the multiple accounts. So it's not going to be reconciled to absolutely zero if you do have multiple accounts. But the brokers need to be aware of the overall issue and the fact that, you know, this is just another account that they have a problem with. But we're to the point now to where we feel we need to move forward with preparing the tax returns. We've given the brokers significant time to try to correct some of this. And you know, there's many taxpayers out there that have been sitting on refunds that are due to them that really want to get that money back. So we're having to take the steps so we can move forward, and this is what we're having to do. We're having to show the adjustments. We have our backup with the TradeLog information, and if we do, in fact, the return is audited, as Bob was saying, I mean, here's our TradeLog information. Johnny, you got anything to add in that particular matter?
I would just echo what you said. And I think in essence what we're saying is it's best if you can get them to make the changes. That's certainly best. But at this point we're kind of having to go with what we have and realizing that it may not be absolutely perfect, but it should be reasonable to use the TradeLog. in that regard. It's the best available. And if it's possible to get with the broker, I've heard many clients who have been told by a call center representative that they're not going to do anything about it, and yet months later actually do get a correction. So it does happen, and even like you said, the squeaky wheel is the one that's getting the changes made. So I do think that attempting to do it is a good idea, and keep pressing them as hard as you can. But ultimately, we may have to just keep file with what we've got.
Well, that's good, guys. Let me jump back in before we go to 8 and do some of these poll questions here. Let me just extend something here. Hold on. So let's do the first poll question. Everyone now, I want you to answer these questions. This one is single answer. Have you identified errors on, let me just expand this so I can read it a little bit better, on your broker-issued Form 1099-B. So have you had errors, everyone? Put in your answers here, and then we're going to share it. We got a bunch of some good poll questions here to see what all of you are experiencing, because that's the feedback is really important to us. So I'll give it another 5 seconds. We got 43% voted. So the other ones who are just listening in, try to get your votes in here so we get a good turnout. Good. We're getting up to 50%, just about 50%. All right, so let's close the poll and share the results. And you should be able to see the results now. And 60% say, yes, you've identified errors on your broker-issued 1099-Bs. 12% no, 28% not sure. All right, so let's go to the next question here. And that is, have you requested and received corrected 1099-Bs? So yes, you requested them and you received them. Second one, you requested them, but you haven't received them yet. Third, you have not requested any changes, and you're not sure if there are any problems. So we got 44%, 48%, 50%. Yeah, good. We're getting more voting, 55%. Good. We're getting up to 60. Get your votes in to this poll, and then let's close it now and share the results. So 11% have requested and received corrections. 33% have requested and not received them yet. 43% have not requested any changes. That sounds high to me. I think that you who have not asked for changes have not really looked at it close enough, or maybe you just figure you'll just file with trade law correctly and not worry about the changes. 15% of you are not sure. Darren and Johnny, if you want to jump in on any analysis of the polls, you're welcome to as well.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, you said haven't requested. Bob, I'd be, for the ones, the 43% that haven't requested, I think they kind of go with not sure. They just, those last two kind of go together as, look, the brokers have been given 1099s in the past that have been fairly good at reporting the gross proceeds, but here in 2011, it's a different ball game, and general taxpayers are still getting educated on the fact that they may not be able to rely on what they used to rely on.
Well, actually, Darren, I think you're absolutely right. I would expect that number to be very high, because if I wasn't an accountant and I got the 1099, I wouldn't even know what to ask to be changed.
Exactly.
It's that confusing. So to put taxpayers in the role of having to figure this mess out, that's what I've been upset about the whole time. They just don't have the...
Here's a perfect example. I mean, when you get your W-2 from your employer, do you go through and dissect it and make sure that those numbers on there are correct? Chances are no, because you expect that information is correct because it came from your employer, which actually gave you the W-2. It's the same situation. You think the 1099s are reasonably correct because the broker's giving them to you, and they're also going to the IRS. And I think it's just going to take some time for the general public just to get a true understanding that, hey, maybe my 1099 isn't correct, and maybe I need to actually consider filing an amended tax return because I may have overstated my overall gain or loss for the year.
Well, I think most clients would be shocked to learn that it's apples and oranges on these Securities 1099-Bs. that it's not meant to even be the same. And TradeLog points it out in their disclaimer. You get an interest 1099, a dividend 1099, like a futures 1099, a pension 1099. They're correct. You're supposed to be able to just enter that information on your tax return. So a lot of accountants, Darren, probably will get away with that excuse this year, but I think it's a sloppy excuse. But you're right, some of them are not. Go ahead, John.
In the past, it was easy for the 1099s to be correct because it was simply a listing of the sales.
Right.
So there was nothing for the brokers to really mess up.
Right.
And so therefore they were generally correct. But now the new requirements require the brokers to take those sales, introduce complex formulas and matching trades that is a complex situation that they're not equipped to do readily. So it's not a simple listing, and that's why there's mistakes. And
right.
And that's
and Johnny, that's the beauty of futures, which is getting to this question 8 right here. The beauty of futures, Section 1256 contracts, is it's mark to market. You're reporting both realized and unrealized gains or losses, which means that wash sales are mute. They don't apply. It's an economic reporting, and it's real simple. You just make an adjustment for unrealized gain or loss at the end of the year and the beginning of the year, and you take the realized gains or losses from your monthly statements. It's summary reporting. The IRS doesn't even ask for line-by-line reporting. People get a 1099. It shows that aggregate profit or loss, and you put it on Form 6781. And that's question 8. How can I avoid this Form 8949 mess in the future? One answer is trading futures, this last answer. But there's another answer, and Darren was the first one to spot this. You go with an entity. Entities don't have to currently file Form 8949, and everybody on this call who has attended our webinars knows that if you're a business trader, we want you to use an entity. We don't want that Schedule C problem. Well, now it's not just a Schedule C problem. It's an 8949 problem. Get rid of both of those problems with an entity. Watch that webinar. We can set it up now for the rest of the year. You still will have the 8949 for the first part of the year. But then you're not going to have any year-end wash sales. If you stop trading as an individual now, you're going to have all closed sales. You're not going to have any new positions to hang a wash sale on, because if we go into an entity and elect mark-to-market accounting, there won't be wash sales. That's a great strategy right now. You should be contacting us about that. Our consultations and entity formation services are on promotion. Get with us on that. Now, the other thing that we've been advocating from day one, we never liked wash sales because we knew that the wash sale rules were always very complex, highly nuanced, greatly misunderstood, and hard to deploy. And that's why we pushed TradeLog in the year 2000 to add MTM. And it used to be known as GTT TradeLog. Now it's TradeLog MTM. Because we wanted that economic reporting with mark-to-market like with futures and be exempt from wash sales. And you don't need Form 8949. You file on Form 4797. So definitely, these are very positive things. The futures have lower tax rates too. Let's see where we are in time. We have more poll questions. You can go back and read commentary on the blog and other things. But let's now go to some more of these poll issues, poll questions. And actually, I didn't hide it, Darren, so I was still showing the last poll. I wasn't showing the website. Let's launch this next one. Do you have unreconciled differences between Form 8949 and 1099B? So get your answers, get your vote in, everybody. Do you're probably working on a draft now, or we're working on it for you, or you've run TradeLog and you have the 8949 in front of you. Are you seeing that adjustment at the bottom? You got to turn on the reconciliation step in the program. And let's see, let's get all the answers in here and close and share the poll. And yes, 72% of you are seeing differences. Now, this is interesting to see how that jives with the other 43% last time, Darren, who haven't called the brokers. That means that you're seeing the differences, but you're not quite sure what they are, and you're not going to start pestering your broker if you don't know what to ask them. That makes a lot of sense. And 8% don't have differences, and 19% not sure. That tells you there's a big problem, doesn't it, Darren?
It does. It really does.
All right, let's go to the next question. Did you file your 2011 tax return with Form 8949? Yes, and Form 8949 was fine with no differences. Yes, and Form 8949 had some differences, which is what we're going to start doing now. No, I'm still on extension. I don't file a Form 8949. Right, get your votes in. We got 49, 52%. Get your last votes in. Let's share the results here. 55, 56%. Okay, I'm closing the poll. 57. We're still voting here. Good, but I think the answer is 60%. Wow, okay, 61. I'll close it. Sorry, I just want to move and share. Look at this answer, Darren. 80% no, they're still on extension. I should have probably had more no answers there to see more information, but 7% filed, and their 8949 was fine with no differences. Their 8949, maybe it worked out, or maybe there were some problems that they just didn't pick up. That's not a big number, 7%. 13% yes, and they had some differences. 80% were waiting for us today. That's good. You were in touch with us. Today is meant as an update where we stand. It's not a be-all and an end-all. Today is to tell you that we've unplugged our bottleneck and we're starting to file, and we're going to be yes with some differences. Some are going to be very material and have those fancy footnotes. Some are going to be very minor and have less fancy footnotes. All right, let's hide that. We got a couple more questions, and then we got questions on the board. You've put your questions on the board, and we're going to get to those too. Do you use TradeLog for securities accounting and reporting? So are you using it? Remember, it does the accounting, it does the reporting of the 8949. Yes, you're using it, and it worked very well. Yes, but I'm not sure I'm using it correctly. No, I use another program or another solution. No, I just relied on the 1099-B for my reporting. That's okay if you did it. We want an honest answer here. The IRS doesn't see how you're voting here. Got 50% voting, 53%, 54%. Get your answers in here, and then we're going to close the poll, 55. All right, let's close it and share the results. 44% said yes. They use TradeLog, worked very well. 24% yes, but you're not sure you're using it correctly. TradeLog, who offers free product support. We offer paid service support where we actually run TradeLog for clients. We get your data file, we check it, we help with all this. You're talking about some big numbers, some big risk. We get them all done on a timely basis and give you the results that you need. 20% no, I use another program. Someone asked on the board, what other programs work out there? Well, you know, some people have mentioned GainsKeeper over the years, but it doesn't do wash sales between stocks and options. And if you have a free version from a broker, you really can't make adjustments. So, but, you know, they're nice people over there. They're well owned by CCH. We've tried to cooperate with them over the years, but our CPAs just much rather have the TradeLog file that they're confident in. SciVantage, a nice company, but they work for the brokers. Their job is to produce the apples for the brokers, not the oranges for you. That's the problem. So many vendors are focused on the broker's apples, not you, the taxpayers' oranges. When it really comes down to it, we only see TradeLog. But whatever you have, come to us with it. You don't have to use TradeLog. If you have a solution and it works, we'll use it. But we have to be confident in your return too. We're signing off on it. There's risk. We have to be confident it's correct. So let's hide this one and show the last question, and then we're going to get to your questions on the board. Do you need our help with Form 8949 and footnote explanations? We'll have more footnotes that we will add to our examples guides. Remember, you get the gold package, you buy the guides, you have all the examples guides to go with it. We're going to put up some footnotes in those guides. And but do you need our help, Darren, with the footnotes and how you handle things? So 33% yes, say yes, 24% no, 45% maybe. Great. our content, our software, our guides, they're meant to be used on a self-help basis, and they're also meant to use us for services help. We aim to please. We're here to help you in the capacity that you need our help. Even if it's just to get free information from our site, we're thrilled to give it to you. Some people come to us now, they get it clean and nice, and they don't have problems. Other people use our content on their own or with other accountants. Some people get audited after the fact. They come to us for help then, or they come to help to fix things later on. Whenever you come to us, it's never too late. We're happy to help you. Okay, let's close that poll. Let's now close the polls. Wait, I shared those results and now hide it. And let's go back now to the poll question. To your questions on the board. So you can get your questions in there, and we're going. We got a few more minutes. We're going to 5:30, actually, and we may go a few minutes later. We'll have the recording up tonight. There were no slides today. We were working off that blog Q&A, which we said we would have Q&A. And some people went on extension, and they want to know what to file and to use the 1099 or not. We covered all that, Mervyn. That's exactly what we did here. Alfred, is TradeLog the only tool that can do this reliably? What about other commercial tools? Well, I just mentioned that. I had your question in mind. I had already read those. And Sarah, arriving late, there will be a recording, yes. Emmanuel, does TradeLog have an IQ on how the people are doing a TradeStation? Yes, go to the TradeLog site and see what they say about the TradeStation 1099s, and TradeStation's promising more corrections, right, Darren?
They're promising. We just don't have a estimated time when we're actually going to get them.
Right. My problem is that there's a lot of brokers and there's clearing firms like Penson. And a lot of brokers clear through Penson, and Penson sends the 1099s. And I just heard that Penson was kind of restructuring and kind of selling off and going kaput or whatever, something like that. And what really concerns me is when a firm like Penson makes changes or a PFG Best fails, who's going to be around to do the 1099s when we need them the next year? I remember when some of these firms went through mergers and acquisitions, they had one system for the first part of the year, a whole different system for the rest of the year, and it just was a huge mess. Didn't that happen a lot, Darren?
Well, we're still having that in 2011 with Thinkorswim and TD Ameritrade. If you have those particular accounts, you have to be extremely careful, because we found some times where the 1099s aren't necessarily reporting all of the trades. So yes, mergers between brokers firms make it very difficult to get adequate and accurate 1099s.
And then you get a 1099 for one half of the year from one party, from the other half of another. Sometimes things are double counted. It can be a real mess. Then Mina has a question. Do we have to do a separate reconciliation for each broker? Pretty much, yes, because otherwise you won't total out your 8949, so you may have a sub-worksheet for that. Will you have different, Johnny, how do you usually like to handle that? Or do you have different 8949s? Johnny, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, you've got to start by reconciling individually, and then you group them together at the end when you do the actual final. But yeah, you've got to reconcile them first individually, and then one last combination file at the end.
All right, good. So Tripp asked, he requested from Schwab, and they refused to correct it. That's, that happens. You can imagine the strain this is putting on the brokerage firms between this and Dodd-Frank and all the new compliance and red tape. That's the commentary. That's the problem. When you drastically increase red tape, everybody starts chasing their tail and running around in circles, and then not only don't you get to where you wanted to beef up to, you take a giant step backwards, because then you mess up everything you had before. It's not an improvement. It crashes the whole system. Charles, don't know what to look for if there's an error. Charles, that's very typical. Bill, this is a nightmare. I ended up choosing 4 accounts with TradeStation due to lack of help. I'm not sure if accountants or accountants. And a lot of people saying they're still on an extension and needing our help. Jeff, I used 2 different online brokers last year. When combining the accounts, I created new wash sales. That's right. This is what Darren has pointed out all along. Darren, why don't you explain it again, what the rule is and how any one broker can never report wash sales right?
Well, what we've been talking about all along so far on this webinar is what are we going to do for 2011? What are we going to do for 2011? The unanswered question is, what are we going to keep doing in the future, because this issue is not going to go away or get any better if you're trading within multiple accounts. And now it doesn't even have to be with different brokers, okay? If you're married and you have an account in your name, your spouse has an account in her name, and then you by chance have a joint account, and all of those are with one broker, well, the broker treats those as 3 independent accounts. They're not related in any way when it comes to 1099 reporting. But when you actually file your tax return, you're filing potentially married, filing joint. You have to take all of your trading within all of your accounts to actually calculate wash sales. Well, you are taking the data that's coming from the broker, and that information is just calculating wash sales for transactions that took place in one respective account. It does not look at any other accounts. So that's how elementary I can make the example, but how dramatic it can be and will continue to be if brokers are actually required to calculate wash sales. This problem is going to be there for now until the IRS addresses it. And one of the simplest solutions would be to actually readdress the whole matter and basically remove the aspect of having the broker to actually calculate the wash sale and letting the taxpayer calculate that, which is what we did before the whole basis adjustment really came into play.
Because, Darren, we saw those huge problems with the potential wash sales where, big brokers showed $10 million of potential wash sales. They're not actual. They don't account for when you absorb them. It seems like wash sales is the biggest culprit of problems all across the map. And even if they got everything right, it would be wrong. So this is what we want the IRS to cough up and to repeal, because this is the biggest problem. And Darren, you did some great work. I know you guys are digging in to see if it's even required. And we have some upcoming things on that. We don't want to jump the gun or break the story, because I know some of your colleagues are working on it too. And I think it's great, because I think you're uncovering a gem there. So keep it up. Paul, my present account is not well-informed accountant with regard to 1099B 8949 issues. He filed an extension. Am I stuck with filing my 011 return with my accountant, or can I use Green NFH? You can use us, sure. That's what we want people to do. Don't wait too long. I mean, I'm not going to start loading Darren up, his team up, with new returns to get done by October 15th on October 1st. Darren, you've always had a strict policy of when people can come to us with new information and new sign-ups. This year, we probably have to make it even longer, because we don't want to get crazy jobs on October 1st. So if you think you want to use us, get to us right away, Paul. Get with us right away. Don't take it for granted that we'll be there for you. We want to be, but we are always a stickler for, if necessary, saying that, hey, we can't take a new client last minute at this time, because there's one thing that comes first with us: quality control. We're not flipping hamburgers here, or we're just opening McDonald's all around the country. It's all about quality control and risk management. So get with us early. Bill, TS refuses to give time on when they're going to do it. They're probably struggling. They're probably listening to this webinar. And listen, if I was involved with that slicing and dicing mess, boy, I'd pull the hair out of my head. It would be a wreck. Mervyn, Penson transferred all data to Apex. What a mess, right? Jerry, Would it be best to submit the trade log trades printout with our returns? Well, you are. That's what you're attaching to the Form 8949. We're giving the IRS all the trades. Now, in my commentary, you know what I said? IRS, boy, did you botch it. This reminds me of the PFG mess. The auditors did paper confirmations, and they got tricked by a phony P.O. box and a phony fax number and paper confirmations. All they had to do, and they can do it now, is hook up the CFTC electronic confirmations to every broker for every client account. Every day, your money on deposit with your broker is electronically confirmed by supercomputer. Bingo, presto, done. Who needs any accountants? I mean, you do need the accountants, but it's there. Same thing here. Why didn't the brokers just give the IRS an annual statement? Instead of a monthly statement with all the confirmations, give an annual statement with all the buys and the sells and any year-end adjustments. And not report wash sales, leave it out like Darren said. They could have just done a data dump. Instead, they asked brokers who are not really accountants to slice and dice in the kitchen to produce apples, which are bad apples, which messed up everything comparing it to oranges. Really small ball thinking. Come on, IRS and regulators. How about getting with the new economy? What is all this paper statements and old-fashioned accounting and craziness? Get with it. Let Google figure this out. Okay, Mark, do you have any classification, or excuse me, do you have any clarification on the IRS requiring short sale buy date being the same as a sell or cover date? The instructions seem to indicate this is required. I'm not sure. Darren or Johnny, do you want to jump in on that if you understood the question?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question myself. I know there is some clarification on that. If you go to, I'm pretty sure the trade log site that you were showing before, Bob, addressed that to where some brokers were actually reporting short sales on settlement date.
Right. I saw a lot of them there. So go back to the trade log and email us more about your question if we didn't get it fully there. I know that there was some new rule. They changed the rules about short sales and how they cover, and everything is up to date on that in trade log. Trip, buy anxiety medication stocks, absolutely. Mark, good humor. I haven't made many jokes about this issue, and maybe I'm a little too serious. And, you know, sometimes we're out there with the problems, and I don't like that because it's too negative. I like to be out there with the positives, how to save more money. We did how to save more money with futures a couple of weeks ago. Tomorrow we're doing, you know, taxes for options traders. We want to be positive. We want to talk about good things. We don't like this mess. We don't want to be negative. Mark, where are the footnotes located? Trade log doesn't give you the footnotes. We give you the footnotes. Look in our guides in coming weeks. We're working on those footnotes right now that we decided to file and did our rep letters and more. So you can look for those very soon. William, how about IRAs? Well, yeah, this is another problem that brokers won't do. They won't compare wash sales between the husband and the wife's accounts, and they won't do it with your IRA accounts either, yet Darren explained the rule on the IRA wash sales.
Well, if you actually do have a wash sale, as you're actually supposed to look if you're trading inside your taxable accounts and then also your IRA accounts. And if you're trading substantially identical stocks between the IRA and your actual taxable accounts, you very well could have a wash sale that's occurring in one. And it's unfortunate because if the wash sale is actually being triggered over in the IRA account, you potentially are going to have a loss that you may not ever get any benefit of. So you have to be careful on that. I know that's one thing that trade log is really wanting to add to their capabilities. And I had one particular client that called me and asked that question, when is trade log going to offer that? I've been told that it's actually going to be available in next year's version of the program. And he just had a large amount of transactions that very well could have wash sales inside of his IRA. And it was just going to take an enormous amount of time to do that calculation manually. my recommendation to him at this point was file your tax return, and then it'll be very conservative in your actual calculations. And then when the new version of trade log comes out, hopefully in January of next year, at that point you can always go back and get your prior data and run the reports again. And at that point, let's see if there is some large wash sales. You can always amend your tax return for the last 3 years to report it properly. And that's going to be the most efficient way to do it, and the proper way to make sure you're calculating your wash sales.
Darren, I was wondering in the past if we could also just run the IRA account as a so-called generic account to spot a wash sale, but we'll come back to that at another time if you want. That's what I used to tell people in consultations. Let's see where we stand here, everyone. We got most of the questions on the board, but the way you said, Darren, is obviously much better. I think we answered all the questions on the board. We'd like to hear from you. Please fill out the survey when you leave us. There are a few questions there as well. What I'd like to stress is we have consultations on promotion now, so you can speak with me about all this. You can sign up for tax prep to work with Darren and our team about all that. You can sign up for trade log accounting. You can, if you want to buy the trade log software, just scroll down and buy it right here and click through the trade log. And if you want to see our guides, including footnotes and examples, they're on promotion now too. And if you want to not do the $89.49 in next year and for the rest of this year and get out of wash sales for the rest of the year, set up an entity, and those are on promotion now too. So we're ready to help you. Please spread the word on this. Give us a call. Mindy handles customer support. She's really fantastic. And Darren is my co-managing partner, managing member of Green NFH. Darren is in charge of all the production of tax prep. He's the guy who reviews your returns, who makes sure it's right. Darren is the one signing off, so I can sleep at night knowing it's all right. So again, you consult with me kind of for like the big picture, the design, the questions, the answers, strategy. You form the entity with me and our outside attorneys who do all the paperwork. You do the trade log accounting, and you do tax preparation with our whole list. We have a large list of fantastic professionals, CPAs. We have investment management services too. So we hope to hear from you soon, and this recording will be up tonight. And thank you all for coming. We appreciate it, and we hope we answered your questions.